Hi, welcome to Soul Talk with Dr. Stephanie and Jessica. This is where we come together each week, talk about real conversations, things that we love to talk about, energy, healing, consciousness, all those wonderful things. So, I am Dr. Stephanie. I'm an acupuncturist, mind body coach. I also am the creator and founder of the Soul Wise Method. And this is my colleague, Jessica Hinderer, who is an entrepreneur and a master Reiki practitioner as well. And again, this is where we come together and just talk about things that we like to talk about. And hopefully, at the same time, hopefully inspire you and get you thinking about things that maybe you haven't thought about before. So each week we come up with different things. And honestly, Jessica and I were talking, and when we first started, we actually surprisingly we have a whole agenda and outline of different topics we want to talk about. But as we've noticed, as we've come into summertime, I think one of the most beautiful thing about having these chats is what's popping up now. Like you can have all the best laid plans, and one of the things that I am learning is sometimes we need to go with the flow. Sometimes we got to be like, how am I going to rule with it here? So today, one of the things that was coming up for both of us is a lot of what we call shadow work. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to let Jessica sort of dive in and for those of you who don't understand or know what shadow work is, I'm going to let her explain it a little bit. So go for it.
Hi, thank you. Yes. Good afternoon. That's exactly it. As you were saying, like going with the flow, like summertime is this wonderful warm space and we're all feeling like, the warmth coming back to our bones, and also with the staying going with the flow is so important. And also with that warmth, and you should probably know this, Stephanie, within your body in Chinese medicine, that creates almost a deeper sense of flexibility, right? So like, let's be flexible about it. And
That's why
also,
Chinese medicine, just as a side note, we refer to it as the fire element, heat. But the
mhm,
fire element, one of the movements is dance. So
yeah,
if you think about the heat and like how do we move our body and all of that. So anyway, that was my little
absolutely.
tangent.
I was dancing in my shower this morning. I was like, get it, get it, get it. Like you got to move your body around. So we decided, I was feeling in the last couple of weeks the theme of shadow work coming up, as Stephanie had mentioned. And, uh, it's funny because shadow work, it has this kind of, I don't know, intimidating connotation to it. There's a lot of this like almost physical resistance to that word or that idea of shadow work, like, ooh, and so we thought, why don't we take this opportunity to kind of reframe it and make it, make it more, I guess, put it in a different way that maybe makes it less scary. Because the
Because when you say
reality.
shadow, like, we've been
Mhm.
taught like the shadow lurking in the shadows, like,
Mhm.
oh, the shadows. So
Yeah.
there has this negative connotation. So what if we
Yeah.
flip it on its side, so to speak?
Right. Exactly. And it doesn't have to mean digging into your darkest traumas, like right this second, right? It's this, oftentimes the overused term of I am triggered, right? But it is valid because this would be what we were talking about, what we want to talk about of the shadow. Because oftentimes, like in my current life, right? Like oftentimes when I am triggered by something, um, before I started this journey, I would say, God, I always do that. Or why, what's wrong with me? Like, why did I react in that way to this, stimulus, whatever that happened to be? But like what I've learned through this journey is like, hold on a second. Okay, I feel it. I feel it. If you can walk away just for a moment, just for a quick moment, and then you ask yourself, why do I feel so triggered by this or this person or this situation or my personal action? Sometimes I'll do something that straight up triggers me. I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Because like you know, what we react strongly to, whether it's within ourselves or from the outside world, what we are like completely, as I tell my kids, like what activates you, I'm kind of trying to change the word of trigger into activate because
Mm,
it's like it activates your system. I know I feel hot everywhere. I might start sweating or I might, like my breath gets shorter and tighter. And so it's like what is activating you within this situation or with that person or whatever it is they said, that is something that is unresolved within yourself. And I think that's really important to recognize. And I'll give you this perfect, very simple example, real life for me. It was a couple years ago. I was going with an old friend to a store, um, and we were going through the store, and it was great and all the things. I was in that time in a very vulnerable, like beginning of this process, right? So it was like learning what these signals were. And in the car, on the way there and on the way back, my friend literally never stopped talking. Do you have a friend like that? Do you have a friend or a situation where it's like all they're doing is just yap, 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 yap? And then I thought to myself, "Damn, they are really full of themselves, aren't they? Or God, don't you ask like a question to bring somebody into the conversation or God. And then I'm asking these questions to myself. And then all of a sudden it was like, hold the phone. Wait, why do I feel triggered by that? Because I know that person for a long time. They've always been that way. So, what is it about me right in this moment that is activating? Right. And I sat with it for a couple days. I did. And what I recognized through reflection is that I saw myself being that person, that I talked too much, that I took up too much space in a conversation, that I was always there, like not listening, just waiting for my turn to talk. Right. And so that was this huge, and I know I'm not alone in that. That was a huge situation. We all want to be heard. We all want to be seen. We all want to be understood. I'm going to keep that mantra going. But like, and we think that making the most noise, in this situation is what's going to do that. So that's my personal story. And since then, since that like big one, because that was a really big, and like I said, not shadow, but mirror, because that person was literally here, giving me the situation of my own, I guess, I don't know, maybe it is the shadow of, I don't think I'm worthy enough. So I have to prove myself by continuing to talk. I have to make sure that everybody thinks I'm awesome, right?
mhm.
Like, let
Which I
it
think is
go,
such a
girl.
valid point of like, so often when we are activated by someone else, and I really love that word as opposed to using, triggered, right?
Mhm.
Activated, it's like, oh, it is activating something within us to bring an awareness to us, and then putting that mirror in front of us to say, whoa, what is being reflected back? And I often think about some of the things, like one of the pieces that I've been really working on and has been a real mirror reflection in some of the shadow work I'm doing is to not respond immediately. And I've been thinking about like, what is that response like from, right? And I realized what came to me is when I was a child, because I grew up in a family that there was a lot of yelling, there was a lot of physical abuse. And so you had to respond quick. You had to think fast, right? And so in order to survive, you had to be very quick. An instantaneous decision for survival. I don't have any of those concerns now at this age. My life, like I don't have any of that in my life. And no, nothing, right? And so for me, I would automatically respond right away. And now what I'm
Mhm.
learning is like, oh, you know what? It's okay to step back. It's okay to sit and to wait. And so one of my rules now is I need to wait 24 hours at a minimum before I respond. And then I need to check in. Is it time? Does it feel right? It's not quite right yet. that feels good. I can go ahead and respond now. Okay.
Mm.
Because now I've dissipated the survival instinct, the survival, which was necessary when I was in a dangerous situation. How am I going to protect myself, right? I don't mean, like, yes, we all are protecting ourselves in one way. Are we protecting our heart? Are we protecting our ego? Are we protecting these illusions we have of ourselves? Now, when you have physical danger, that's a very different response than some of these other pieces. However, I notice that it's still showing up in me, even without the physical danger, right? Even without any emotional danger, I'm still responding the same way. So unless I step back and say, oh, why am I agitated? I gotta, like, okay, I'm a rabbit. Okay, I gotta respond right away, right? Like, that's not good for my cortisol, my nervous system, or my regulation. And so one of the things Jesse and I were talking about, so often people are like, well, what exactly is shadow work? And people get, I've experienced working with my own clients, is this what they describe as anxiety and a tightness in their chest, like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, we're going to do it. And I said, instead of thinking about shadow work, think about it mirror work. And
Yeah.
when we look at it as a mirror, like, I want to be the best version of myself. I want to evolve, and I want to be the kindest person I can be. I'll share a real quick story. Last week, I talked about my landlord who is, well,
Mm.
just say being challenging. He's an older gentleman in his early 80s. He is being challenging, in my opinion, right? And we've moved out of our old rental, and he reached out because there were two items that were left behind. Everything else was spotless. Even the two items we left behind were left in a very respectful way. But but they don't belong there, so we need to get rid of them. And I could have, and it's just like, well, I'm not going to move that. Like, I'm done with that, right? And my pettiness was like, no, he can deal with it. But then I had to step back and sorry to my husband. He had the same reaction, like, I'm not doing it. We did everything. We went beyond everything. And we did all sorts of things. And anyway, doesn't even matter what we did. And I stopped and I said, you know, your dad is close to his age. If this was our parents, what would we do?
Mm.
Would we
Beautiful.
help them, or we would say, go do it yourself, sucker?
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
No, we
Such
would
a good
do it for our
point.
parents. And so but the challenge is this is he I when I do my standard, like this landlord standard says 100, my stand's 150. So I did
Mhm.
150%. But now
Yeah.
because there's these two things, he thinks that the standard now can go to 175. But
Mm.
I set that up because
Mhm.
I overcompensate for my lack of worthiness and self-worth
Yeah.
and my needing to be validated that I'm doing the right thing and I'm good and that I'm worthy and I'm a good person. I'm going to overextend myself at the expense of my own health, my mental health, and all of it, so that what would normally be an acceptable level for anybody else, now
Yep.
I've upped the expectation. So now they've said, oh, we're going to even make a bet. We're going to make it even harder for you. So there is this fine balance between
Yeah.
making sure you set the boundary and aren't over overdoing something. But in this case, I was like, you know what? It's fine. We're not going to remove it from the property, but we'll move it up to the curb and we'll go the extra step and we'll call for a bulk pickup. Okay, so he doesn't
Yeah.
have to remove it. He doesn't have to take it apart. County will take care of it. Okay. Did I have to do that? No. Did it cost me anything? It cost me 5 minutes for my husband to move it up. Another 5 minutes for us to go online to order it. A big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think those are the things that we to look at, because in the past I would have been, I'm not going to do that, and I talk all big, but the reality is, I'm not talking big talk, but I'm still going to do it because
Of
I have
course.
integrity and I want to do right by people, and I also don't want to leave any karma left.
Mhm. That's another conversation. We can't go into the
No,
karma
we can't
now.
go into that, but
Yes. And it's such a good story because just within this, like this trial, we can even say, right? Because it's an
mhm,
ongoing thing, is like to keep to ground in like this understanding that shadow slash mirror work is about self-awareness. It's not about tolerating someone's bad behavior or someone's inappropriate behavior,
right,
right? Self-awareness being like, oh, why do I feel this way, right? Having our Like when we were chatting about it earlier, I like how I go through it when I do feel activated. It's like, okay, activated. What is happening? That means I need more information. So it's like activation, information, then curiosity. Questions like, where does this exist inside of me? Right? Like, where do I feel activated? Sometimes it is the anxiety where it's the tight chest, right? Sometimes it's the rage, which comes from deep down under, and it's like a geyser that shoots out. So, like, where is it existing in me? Do I do this? Like, do I do what's triggering me from someone else? Or do I maybe wish that I could? Oftentimes we feel triggered by, oh, that person's so annoying. God, they're always bragging about how many vacations they take and they're always yada, 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 right? Like, is that that could be because you have jealousy or you have, I wish that we could also do that, right? So those questions, it's like flipping it rather than blaming them, you just flip the lens. You just look at the mirror, right? I mean, how often are we staring at our faces? Okay, like, come on. And so it's like, instead, we can look at our inner mirror, which I think is such a cool way to look at self work, self healing, self help, whatever that case is, to create the balance within us. Because, it's the analogy of like having that your body's a temple, right? But like, what do we focus? What is our current society focused the most on about the temple? It's like everything on the outside, how beautiful or how strong or how whatever, right? And it is like, but if you were to go visit that temple, you would walk in and there'd be broken glass. There would be, like a whole bunch of cobwebs everywhere. And that's like inside our body because we're not spending the time to look at ourselves in this way of like, getting curious. So it's trigger activation. We get information from that. Then we get curious about it. We ask the questions. Then after we get some answers, I have gratitude. I have this overwhelming amount of gratitude. Like, I'm so grateful that I have the tools to be able to figure this out for myself. Right. And then and then after that, usually closely follows, okay, I accept it. That is part of me and I see it. Thank you. Thank me. Thank higher self for showing me this because it's important for me. And then I meet that part of me. Hey, what up, little rage bait girl? Like, how's it going? I love you so much, and it's this acceptance of, right? Or this, we have to accept that part of us because we have all these different parts. And then once we can like bring it back into the whole, that part of us that was triggered, that was activated, once we bring it back into whole and say, you are also allowed to exist here, right? Allowance. And then I say, and feel free to leave when you're ready, because release is a huge part. And on top of that, the word activation, right? So much energy, activate, right? There's so much energy in that. What I do at the final stage is get my feet in that grass. I'm going there and I'm going to think about the situation. I'm going to get activated myself. And then I'm going to let it go. Mama Gaia, please take this energy. I'm not needing anymore. So those are my simple, practical thing that I do that helps me in each individual mirror shadow work. How about you? What do you do?
Brilliant. And I think it's
Yeah.
just such a great framework for us to look at, right? And the trajectory of what happens when this mirror comes back and we're activated. And I think one of the other things is to remember is that our brain is wired to notice what feels familiar and what feels threatening. So often, when we're triggered, it's because it's from a past experience, right? And
Mhm.
usually those past experiences were from some sort of unmet need, something that
Yep.
was unresolved, or some
Yep.
sort of trait that was suppressed that we weren't allowed to express and be. So, like, I think about like right now, if any of you follow astrology, we just entered Mercury retrograde. And so, Mercury retrograde, people are like, oh, I hate Mercury retrograde. Oh, but I think it's such a wonderful time when it goes retrograde. And what it means to have a Mercury retrograde is that it is about going back, and Mercury is about communication. It's about how do we communicate what hasn't been communicated. It's where our wires get crossed, miscommunication happens. So it really is about slowing down, reviewing, taking stock, remembering, reworking stuff, reevaluating, and saying, well, what does this look like? And I think that when we look at things that are our triggers, when we go through like a Mercury retrograde, like I'm thinking about like, why is this showing up now, like with the landlord, where he's sort of pushing back on different things? And for me, I have not always been very clear about my boundaries. But the other
Mhm.
thing is that I also am now really coming into a place of me speaking more directly, without emotion, and saying, this is what the fact is. Like I'm not being unreasonable in this request. I'm not being unreasonable in what I'm sharing. I'm not being unreasonable in any way, right? I'm not being too much. And I've also been
Mhm.
accused of being too much. And so this is a
Raise
reminder.
your hand if you have.
Right, right? And so for me, it's really about like this mirror isn't like mixed, it's not something like overly mystical. It's about this pattern recognition and then the emotional memory and saying, hello, are you awake? And then it's not about, I think the important part, it's not about blaming ourselves. So not everything is a shadow. There are some people that are just dicks, let's be real.
Mhm.
And there are some people that are intentionally being harmful, disrespectful, and they're just because they're completely out of alignment.
Yes.
Okay. And they
Yeah.
have no situational awareness, they have
Mhm.
no concept of how their presence is being experienced by others. And they believe that they actually are justified in how they're responding in the right action, right?
Mhm.
So it's all a matter of perspective. So I
Yeah.
think that's why it's so often important to say, is my reaction bigger than the situation? If it is, that's a personal issue.
Mhm.
That's the mirror shining back. However,
Mhm.
if it's not, you're like, huh, I responded to that, but that is a justifiable reaction that is measured in equal energetic exchange to the experience, then
Mhm.
that's not a trigger. It's not a shadow. It's an experience. If that makes sense.
Right.
Does that make
Right.
sense?
It does. And like it's not that's yes, it is important to put that asterisk, that caveat of like not everything is shadow work, you know, because there's as humans
Mhm.
in this, in this gravity filled world, it's heavy. And a lot of people are on completely different, we're all multifaceted. We're all have different goals. We all have different backgrounds, educations, right? Like self healing, self help, self empowering. Like it's a big thing is that we give our power away so often that when we actually have, this recognition that crap, I literally don't trust anything that I hear within myself, right? I'm just asking other people. So I'm going to go run to, Bestie number 4 and ask them why Bestie number 2 triggered me, right? Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of different levels, and I've been on all of them as far as self awareness goes. And I have really done that. And, I think that what is important to drive home in that situation is that, I think as far as shadow work, mirror work, like it is not an enemy. And this is like a lot of us, we run away, as we said at the beginning, it's like, whoa, like I don't want to look in there. And there was so much that I didn't look in that it would pop out because it needed to, and it would be it, like exponentially larger than it needed to be, right? Because every time I felt triggered or activated, I pushed it down. And I moved forward. So I think that's really the most important thing too, is like, think about it like a balloon maybe full of air, right? If we let it out slowly, make that little super fun little, like little bit at a time, right? Of the shadows, of the mirrors, of the things that we need to look at. it's going to be so much less dramatic than if we blow it to full capacity and then we go and throw it, to play with a friend, but you have a popcorn ceiling and then pow, right? Like it's done. As far as analogies go, like I think that it's really important, to whenever I feel activated, I hold on, breathe, right? The best, easiest step, no matter if that's like fear, sadness, rage, like even extreme happiness, as
Mhm.
far as when I feel that, because that's activation too. It's like, let me just ground into this because I want to hold on to this happiness. I want to hold on to this joy because you can't keep trying to get higher and higher, right? Same way as with lower and lower. We have to find that, let's balance it. Let's go, you know, slowly breathing, taking a moment. And I love your 24-hour rule. We are so reactionary with these little phones that we have
Mhm.
that anytime somebody texts you, you think you instantly must have all the answers right there. And that was really hard for me too, to let someone sit for 24 hours without, notice. Even sometimes, like even today, I have a hard time doing that. And
Mhm.
I'll even
Me
just
too.
caveat, right? I'll caveat it with, hey, let me get back to you, just so I
Mhm.
don't feel like they're hanging. But that's my work because who cares? Right? Like, do you know how
Well,
many
in this
people?
instant
Yeah.
gratification and this
Yeah.
instant access world,
Yeah.
it overloads our nervous system and it throws us off so that we don't trust our intuition and we don't trust the process. And it makes it easier to fall into the habitual paradigm or habits. And one of the things that we were talking a little bit earlier about was how do we quiet the noise of the external world to follow our authenticity and our sovereign path, if you will, and to find what rules apply to us. Okay.
Yeah.
Because just because the rule or the standard is such and such, it doesn't necessarily mean 100% that that's going to apply to you and I, right? And it's okay to be outside of, be the outlier, right? It's
Yeah.
okay to be that. It's not comfortable when you first start. And yet, I say what we're evolving into right now. And part of the reason why I did bring up the Mercury retrograde and this conversation about shadow work as mirror work is because it is about reviewing it. And with that said, if you begin to look at astrology, and I look at astrology as simply another piece of the puzzle. Do I follow it word for word? Do I understand all of it? No, but it's another lens, it's another paradigm, it's another way to look at how things influence us from an energetic perspective when we have these triggers. And right now, collectively, the world consciousness is really heavy. And we have a lot of heavy duty planets that are aligned in asking us to push our limits. And right now, the moon has entered into the furthest distance it is away from our planet. Okay.
Mm.
So, why do I bring that up? It takes 18 and a half years for the moon to get to that distance. So, it literally is pushing our expansion to the furthest level that we can tolerate. Okay. And so, as it does that, things are going to feel pressure. And
Mhm.
so I know I've been feeling, although I haven't been as reactive, I've been surprisingly, I'm so proud of myself. Like, I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm doing
The
pretty
work
good. I'm
is
like, I'm staying
working.
pretty
It works
neutral.
if you work it.
I am like between the pipe bursting in my house in the past week and my whole new place having to rip up floors and walls. I'm like, it happens. It works. This landlord asking for ridiculous things and deducting ridiculous things and me coming back. No, actually, here's the receipt. Like, no, not no. I'm staying neutral in it, okay? But why am I bringing it up? Because right now we're in this pressure cooker, I really feel like,
Mhm.
for July. And so I think a lot of this mirror work has the potential of bubbling up more. So when it does, and why does it have more now? Because when you're, at least we're in the northern hemisphere, we are in summertime right now. So those who are in the southern hemisphere, you guys are in the winter, right? But those in the summer, it's a pressure cooker right now. We're having a heat wave pretty much across the whole like U.S., across Europe. It's really hot. It's sticky. Heck, London, England was warmer than Miami, Florida. So that tells you how hot it is, okay? So when we
So
have that intensity, what happens? We get irritable, we're short tempered, we don't have as much patience, we are quick to go into what I call the negative.
mhm.
Because it's pushing us, right? So when
Or
that
the lower
happens,
aspect, right? It's lower than higher. We could say
yeah,
negative, positive, lower, lower, higher. Yeah.
yeah, right. So it's the exact opposite, right? So as it goes up, something has to come down to ground it. So that's where use this energy right now to do some of this work. And now, like, if you have, like, I have done a lot of trauma work because I've had a lot of trauma, but I think a lot of people have had trauma in different ways and at different so-called levels. It doesn't matter what level it is or intensity. We all have something that's related to that. You don't have to do that part if you don't want
Oh,
to. If you're like, no, I'm not ready for that, not ready for that shit, forget that,
mhm.
be gone.
Nope.
But if you are, then go for it. If not, and something comes up, take time to like go into it. And I love what Jessica said. Like me, I'm always like, oh, take a deep breath before you respond. Okay, I got your message. I'll
Hmm.
respond within the next day.
Hmm.
That's all I need
Yep.
to say. I acknowledge receipt, got it, not responding right now. Got to
Hmm.
sit with this for a moment. Okay. If we're in the middle, so that people are demanding you respond, if you change the energy in which the demand energetic is coming back to you, it doesn't fuel that energy continuously coming back to you. So if you match that energy and the same energy that you're receiving it, it's just going to keep and amplifying it, right? But if someone comes at you with rage, if you just go, wow, that sounds really upsetting.
Yeah, and we talked about that actually
Hmm.
last
Time,
episode.
right?
Yeah, and I think also it's a perfect um thing to add in this way too, because it's summertime. A lot of families, it's like that's why they call it Christmas in July, right? It's like
Right.
that. It's like that meeting point. We go when we visit family, we go and visit friends, or they come to us. I mean, this is a perfect. And then of course you add the heat to it, so everybody's just a bit more irritated, right? Like discomfort, no, thank you. And so it's like this is actually a really good time for this episode or this information, because if there is anyone out there that might be, I don't know, hosting or going to see family that can be activating or triggering, this is a wonderful time to use to use these as exercise, right? Because especially with family, I mean, at least for mine, I can't talk for everybody's, but for mine, I'm probably like the shittiest, like if I need to be, right? Because they're family. Like, I mean, if
Hmm.
nobody, if it's not like I'm going to say the same thing to a colleague that I'm going to say to my sister who's driving me buggers. Do you know what I mean? So it's like we have this opportunity where we can be actually honestly vulnerable. You could maybe, depending on yourself and your family, say, hey, this is something that I'm working on. So, let just to give you a little, I don't know, in parentheses or a little asterisk there, right? Like mom, dad, just right? And hello, we're women too, so of course we're in our cycles, so we already know all the madness that goes on with that. So let's use this, because I know my family, a good half of my family is coming here and they're going to spend a month with me, and I am so excited. And also, we're going to breathe. We are going to breathe. We're going to be okay. I have a
And it's
completely,
also where, how do you, in that moment, where do you create some space, even in the middle of this high yang energy? Where do you
mhm,
find the space to be still, to go
yeah,
within, to honor your inner temple, right?
yeah.
And one of
Mhm,
the things that you shared earlier with me that, as we begin to wrap up,
mhm.
is you said this, and it just like, I was like, yeah, this is beautiful. The people who trigger you the most aren't always your enemies.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're just holding a mirror up that you didn't know you needed.
Hmm.
I think that's just such a powerful reminder because often we're like, oh, I don't like that person. Oh, they're being mean. And, we begin to dehumanize them, right? And no, they're just living their life. They're just living their life. They probably have not thought about you at all. Maybe one tenth of a percent, right? But yet we attribute all of this emotion and oh, they're doing all of this to me.
Hmm.
And yes, absolutely. But what about this exception? Is absolutely there's always freaking exceptions. So like whatever, get over yourself if you're like, but what about this exception? Um, but
Yeah.
I think it's just so important. One of the things that I've come to realize is that when people trigger me when I was younger, I would avoid, right? Now as I've gotten older, I'm like, let me lean in. Let me lean in. Let me lean into this.
Hmm.
What is my learning here? What's my growth edge here?
Yeah.
Let me grow from this, experience this moment. Oh, how can I reframe that to change the dynamic? I just saw this video on YouTube yesterday, and I think some other people have seen it. There's this guy who drives up in his convertible, and this other guy's beside him, and he's like, "Hey, man!" And the guy looks over in the convertible. He's like all defensive, and he goes, leave some of them for us, man." Because this guy was beautiful and he looked good in his car, implying like, "Hey, come on, leave some babes for me over here too." And the guy looked at it and just started laughing because he immediately went on the defensive. He's like, "Leave some for us, for the rest of us." Um, but he immediately, when he said that, the guy got it right quickly, and his whole demeanor just shifted. And I think it's
Mhm.
so important within the span of literally, I'm going to say 2 seconds, it went from this intense possible exchange to, yeah, got it. Okay. Um, so I think that's the beauty of this shadow mirror work is we can actually literally change it um, in how we respond instantaneously. So, um,
Totally. And that's really it. It's like reframing this shadow. It really isn't scary. There will be times you will have episodes that, like any good series, are going to be more intense than others, right? Um, and the reframe, you know, the purpose is that shadow work isn't about fixing yourself, right? Like you're already perfect. You're beautiful. You're fantastic. Of course, there's always things we can work on, right? But it's about meeting those parts of you that did get left behind, that
it's
aren't being, yeah, that aren't being recognized. Oftentimes the defensive part will come up, protective part. Girl, she is badass. Like you don't even want to meet her, I swear. Like, but like she came up recently for me too. And that really tossed me, it really tossed me because I hadn't seen her in a while, but she really needed to be there. And it was such a wonderful moment where I could have easily been like, I'm a terrible, horrible person, right? But instead I was like, girl, you're right. I have not given you enough attention. I'm so sorry. Props, props, props. Thank you for being there. Also trust and know that I don't need protection and that I got you. Right. So
So on that note, we're gonna wrap up for
yeah,
this week's episode, and
yeah,
hopefully this gave you some things to think about, to consider, and mostly, it made you curious to really dive into this aspect of yourselves and to get to a different layer. So as always, we're going to encourage you to stay curious, stay awake, and this is Soul Talk, and we'll see you next week.
bye. See you next time. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
That's right. Thumbs up.
Hmm.